Human circulatory system. Our human heart is the size of a clenched fist, and they are made up of cardiac muscles, that are branched and striated, uninucleate, and they are involuntary, means their contraction and relaxation is not under our control. And they are mesodermally derived. Mesodermally derived means the embryonal tissues, endoderm, ectoderm, this is the endoderm, and then the outermost layer of tissues are called ectoderm. Mesoderm are the tissues that comes between the ectoderm and endoderm, and this is the opening for the gut. So these are mesodermal tissues. So it is these mesoderm that gives rise to the cardiac muscles and the heart. Now the heart is surrounded by a protective covering, and that is called as pericardium. This is called as pericardium, and there is a fluid that fills the pericardium. That fluid is called pericardial fluid. Now our heart has got 4 chambers. This is the right atrium, 2 atrium, this is right atrium, and here there is the left atrium, and this is the left ventricle, and then here we have the right ventricle. So like that, there are 4 chambers for human heart. The wall that separates, or the tissue that separates the left side from the right side of the heart, is called as septa. So here we can see the septa. So there is a septa between 2 atrium, and there is also a septa between 2 ventricles. There is also septa between atrium and ventricles, which is called as atrioventricular septa. Now, because of these septa between the right and left sides, there won't be any mixing between the oxygenated blood and the deoxygenated blood. The atrioventricular septa is not completely closed, they have gaps, and these gaps are guarded by valves. the valve present between the right atrium as well as the right ventricle, they are called as tricuspid valve. And the valves between the left atrium and left ventricle, they are called as bicuspid valve. All the valves prevent the backflow of blood. That means once the blood passes from atrium to the ventricle, it cannot flow back to the atrium because the valves will close. Now, for the passage of blood from the lungs, the oxygenated blood comes towards the left atrium through the pulmonary vein. And then the blood from the left atrium passes to the left ventricle. From the left ventricle, the oxygenated blood moves upwards through the aorta. The aorta will branch. Some of the branches will go towards the upper parts, that is the head. Some will go towards the limbs like hands, legs, and all. So the aorta supplies the oxygenated blood to the tissues. Aorta will later break up into arteries and they will be circulating the oxygenated blood towards the tissues. So this aorta has inside valves, and these valves present inside the aorta, they are called as semilunar valves. Semilunar valves also prevent backflow of blood towards the ventricle. So the blood, once it gets inside the aorta, immediately the semilunar valves will close so that the blood will not flow backwards. Now from the tissues, the deoxygenated blood from the tissues is carried by the veins, capillaries, and then capillaries will join together to form the veins, and they will drain the deoxygenated blood to the right side of the heart, that is towards the right atrium. The right atrium, when it contracts, the deoxygenated blood will pass on to the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, the deoxygenated blood will be carried towards the lungs. The blood vessel that carries the deoxygenated blood towards the lungs is called as pulmonary artery. The pulmonary artery also has got semilunar valves inside. They too have semilunar valves so that the blood, once it gets inside the pulmonary artery, should not be flowing back towards the right ventricle. That's why. Now there are some autoregulatory tissues present in the heart. One is present in the right atrium, and this tissue is called sinoatrial node or SAN. SAN means sinoatrial node. Sinoatrial node will send electrical impulses which causes the atrium to contract. These electrical impulses will pass on to another nodal tissue which is present near the atrioventricular septum, and this is called as atrioventricular node. Atrioventricular node. The atrioventricular node also causes electrical impulses that passes through nerve fibers, that is called as bundle of His. The bundle of His will branch to the left side of the heart and the right side of the heart, that is in the ventricles. Later, these branches will form nerve fibers, and these fibers are called as Purkinje fibers. So all these nerve fibers, they can cause the heart muscles to contract. So that's why such a type of heart is called as myogenic heart. Human heart is myogenic. It means that the nervous impulses are originating from the nodal tissues that are present within the heart itself. So our heart beats on getting excited. Our heart beats about 70 to 75 times a minute. Per minute, it beats about 70 to 75 times a minute. And this heartbeat is also called as cardiac cycle. So one heartbeat is also called as one cardiac cycle.